southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train. Going too fast now, think I ought to slow down, standing in the pouring rain.
What's going on, guys? Tristan and Tony back with another episode of the One Hell of Life Outdoor Podcast. Tonight we have Jason Lupardus on the podcast. He's the CEO of Turkeys for Tomorrow, and super excited to get to talk some turkeys with him and learn a bit about what they do. From my understanding, like outside looking in, it's a similar organization to like a Ducks Unlimited or a Delta Waterfowl, something like that. And Jason's also a wildlife biologist, so we always love having biologists on the show to learn some cool facts. So, Jason, thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. We're really excited.
Yes,
Man,
thank you.
I'm fired up to be here with y'all. And I promise that I'm not going to give y'all like crazy biology talk. I can whip a little bit out. I'll tell you what, I mean, with turkeys and everything else, it's been kind of a beautiful evolution over time where we see people now very hungry to get some of the science. And I'm going to brag for just a second, not about me, but about the Wild Turkey Science podcast and kind of the whole emphasis of us supporting that and driving that with Dr. Goolsby and Dr. Lashley was to really take some of the details of the science and what, if I showed you my bookshelf over here, like published stuff, right, that no one usually reads except for a few nerds like myself and others at times, get some of that information out to the, the average hunter, landowner, you name it, folks that want to do something in a way that they can consume it, digest it, use it. And so it's been kind of a beautiful evolution to see how we're starting to get some of the real science out there in front of people. And I got to be honest with you, next week we have some things we're going to launch that is going to put the science in what we call the citizen scientist's hands. And so we got some cool things going on with some new partners. And it's something we'll be able to collect data across the United States and beyond. And it's pretty fantastic.
Wow. That is super
very cool. Looking forward to seeing what you guys roll out with that. If you wouldn't mind, just give everybody just a little background, Jason, on what your background is and how kind of Turkey for Tomorrow came about.
Yeah, man. So a little bit about me. I mean, I'm now a Kentucky hillbilly. People call me a mutt of the Southeast. I'm originally from North Alabama. Got lost in East Tennessee working on elk restoration when I was in college. Okay. Worked on that for my master's degree. So, chasing critters that like to talk back to me is kind of my thing. Whether they're small as a turkey or big as an elk, you got my jam, right? And so really good. But got lost down in Georgia after that for a bit, working as a private lands biologist. Working with private landowners. I was kind of the sole biologist working with folks across the southern half of the state, doing a little bit of everything. Jumped from there and went to the National Wild Turkey Federation and worked there for about a decade. Had a great run and worked in many different roles. And before it was over with, working as a conservation director, I'd kind of built about 25 staff working for me and doing a lot of projects. Left there and worked for Union Sportsman, working with union labor as the chief operating officer over there, and then started dabbling with some different things, kind of started my own consulting company, even worked with another gentleman on a, let's just say an app. And nice. And then basically started volunteering with TFT. Okay. And I heard some guys go, hey, they may need some help. And some years ago, I had some of the original founders that reached out to me and talked to me about it. And I just said, hey, guys, y'all need some help. Mm-hmm. We had a call, and I had a call with Ron Jolly, which is truly the founder. Okay. He said, hey, we're about to we're trying to get a grant. You know anything about grants? I said, yeah, I've moved a few grants and agreements with a lot of zeros on there. And so we started talking, and literally that turned into hey, me and another gentleman, we're going to help y'all write a grant and do some stuff. He's like, can you tell me about your background? I went, sure. And like, did we hire you for something? I went, maybe. So that's kind of how I stepped into this thing. And, I'm a turkey nut. I mean, chasing turkeys is my passion. When I grew up in Alabama, Northwest Alabama, it's an area that is still very devoid very devoid of turkeys, Northwest Alabama.
Okay.
And it always is it's been one of those things, you kind of soul search over time, right? There's some things that bother you, and that one has always bothered me, being a biologist, that there aren't turkeys there. So stepping back into the turkey arena again to try to solve some of those issues have been very important for me. And so yeah, I jumped on to kind of handle some of our business ops, and the next thing you know, they're like, "Hey, would you just try to help run this thing?" And I said, maybe. And so I did, but not because I needed a title, but because I care, man. I mean, I want to see some changes with turkeys. I have seen the high point of turkey numbers in throughout the coastal plain United States and other areas. We're seeing some significant, in some areas, turkey decline, and that it's not good. And so we got to do something. And that was really the emphasis of how Turkeys for Tomorrow started. Well before I stepped on, these guys said, "Hey, man, we're going to places where you used to hear a bunch of birds and they're not there. What's going on?" And a lot of people asking questions. And those questions from a lot of people that were in the hunting industry started kind of sparking some reactions. And so, I mean, I just stepped in to try to better build this organization and really bring some of my background with the turkey science to try to drive some action. And so we're at a very good point. We got a lot of things going on, and hopefully we can turn this thing around in a very positive way.
Man, that's good. That's great stuff to get have you guys boots on the ground. I mean, obviously you hear about the glory days of like the '90s, and like you hear about here in Georgia, like they used to have like 3-4 poults to hen ratio back in the day, and now it's like 1.6 or whatever.
Yep, that's not good. So the average, for a balanced population where you're not up or down is a 1-to-2 ratio, right? Every hen is able to recruit 2 of her poults into the population to be adults. We're just not seeing that everywhere. And so, and if you really target specifics, the coastal plain up the East Coast, Mississippi River Valley, all the way over to Texas, and then kind of a spattering throughout some of the Midwest, we're seeing some issues. And so it's a complicated kind of deal because turkeys are boom and bust. They can go up real fast and they can go down real fast. And Mother Nature does have a big hand in all this. And so it's a complicated kind of system, but I feel pretty confident we know some of the big components, and if we influence 3 or 4 of those in a positive way, I think we can flip things around. And there's a lot of correlations in the past that I like to talk about because I think it's important for us to consider these today, even though no one was really monitoring back the day. But if we follow some of those guidelines, I think we can turn things around. So
nice.
So, good.
No, I was just gonna say, it's interesting, and this is Tristan and I are just such big advocates of folks like you that have spent their life, investing their time to be able to be smart enough for people like us that just go, well, why did they lower the limit? And we can all laugh at the comments and stuff like that go on social media and everything, but at the end of the day, thank God that there's people like y'all that do these things, because it's not as simple as just like, okay, well, just don't hunt as much. I mean, right? Like what you said, that you guys get your eye on 3 or 4 things that, there's a balance that has to happen. And the first time I can ever remember understanding like the true balance, I think the biggest slap in the face for me on that was my buddy having his first saltwater fish tank. And you'll see where I'm going with this is that I didn't realize why people put thousands of dollars into these things, because they're creating this ecosystem, right? And it's just in this one little tank. We're not talking about what God put on this earth, right. and that we're taking from it. So, no, but big shout out to y'all, and thank you for being the leading if it wasn't for folks like you and Dr. Mike Chamberlain and everybody else in every single different species of animal that we harvest, we would be toast, So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's definitely a team effort with a lot of people that care, and honestly, man, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I call myself an average Joe hillbilly turkey. I mean, I love to hunt. I love to get out with other people. And at the end of the day, I do feel like hunters are truly kind of they're at the front line, and the folks on their own properties. I really feel like they know about what's going on there better than anyone else.
Right.
So all we need to do is to try to provide a little bit of guidance, but also get feedback from those people as well. And so when I first introduced the idea of citizen scientists, and we were having I put our board and staff, and at that time I just come in trying to help through a SWOT analysis, kind of a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and it's a means to really pull people together. You kind of dissect everything going on, and it was really interesting. Everybody was like shotgun pattern, like bad shotgun pattern, right? And I'm like, let's put the choke in, let's tighten this baby up, and then we're going to do this right with the right shot. And then we started really honing in, and I'm like, oh yeah, we can kill a turkey with that. And so, but we come out of that with really some defined direction in how to start tackling some things. And we're in a really good place right now, trying to drive some of this with some action on the ground. And I mentioned earlier that, we're going to try to really grab a hold of all the citizen scientists out there. So when I mention citizen scientists, people are like, man, that sounds too fancy. I'm like, dang, I'm trying to elevate the average Joe like myself.
Yeah.
I think this is good.
Right? You can feel like you got a white collar on. Right?
Yeah. And I'm like, look, I'm going to make everybody extra important. So that's kind of the goal. Like, if you're a redneck, you're my crowd. I'm going to call you a citizen scientist. Come on now.
That's
So, oh, good.
That's where we're driving some action. And I think at the local level, having people that are out every day, whether during turkey.
What's up, guys? If you want coffee that doesn't suck, you probably can guess what I'm going to say. Get the Duck. Dirty Duck Coffee is the official coffee of the One Hell of a Life Outdoor podcast, and they have a great lineup of different coffee blends, everything from Morning Wood and First Flight to Dark Dynasty and Suns Up, Guns Up. You can't go wrong with Dirty Duck Coffee. And they have a great lineup of cold brew cans, mocha, French vanilla, original cold brew, and cinnamon teal snickerdoodle. If you want 15% off your next order, use code One Hell of a Life 15 on your next order.
Season, deer season, duck season, you name it. And collecting information for us is going to be uber powerful. And what we can do, we can supersede what state agencies are able to do. Because oftentimes, believe me, man, I worked for a state agency for a bit. When I show up in the mean green, people are like, oh, no, it's game board. This is a bad guy.
Yeah.
And it was always a challenge, man. And I was all over Georgia running around. But what I saw is once you broke through and folks understood that, like, hey, I'm not here to try to tell you what to do. I'm here to try to help you.
Yeah.
And coming from a nonprofit, it's extra easy because people know I don't have a hidden agenda.
Yeah.
I'm not the gov. I don't have a hidden agenda. I want to have more turkeys like everybody else.
Right.
So if we look at it from that perspective and we give some tools to people at a local level, I think we can all really enhance how we're going to manage turkeys for longevity. And that's the goal.
I could see that being super beneficial because I think I want to get the number. You might know the exact number, but I don't want to mess it up. But we had Emily Rushton on our podcast like 2 years ago. She's the Georgia turkey biologist, and she was saying how important those private landowners are because I want to say she said that 93% of the turkey habitat is privately owned in the state of Georgia, and like 7
in Georgia.
Public.
Yes. Yeah. In the eastern U.S., let's just make this huge, right?
Yeah.
In the eastern U.S., about 87% is all privately owned.
Wow.
And so you think about management schemes and how much money is just put on public land and all this jazz. And if we're not addressing it on private lands, we are missing the needle.
Yeah.
And technically, we could have some private lands that are adjacent to or within proximity of what I would call an area we're really trying to manage for turkeys,
Mhm.
we can basically bolster turkey numbers on public lands from private land management. It's that easy.
Yeah.
And so birds cover a big home range in the state of Georgia. Back in the day, we're talking about up to 4 square miles, and
Wow.
that's still true. 2 to 4 square miles, 1,200 to about 2,600 acres is
Wow.
what a bird covers throughout the year to make a living.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Wow, that's a larger home range than I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 2 to 4 square miles. That's a lot of land.
So
it
it
really is.
supersedes deer, okay,
Yeah,
right? Deer's
right.
about 1 square mile, 640 acres. And so when you start thinking about this, it becomes uber complicated. When you look at average landowner or ownership in the Southeast, it's 50 to 100 acres, okay? So let's have some fun. How many birds can you harvest in Georgia this year?
It's 2, isn't
2, I
it?
think. Yeah,
But
Dude,
not
yeah,
on the same
it
day.
changed.
but
It used to be you could harvest 3 birds a day because believe me,
Yeah.
I'm one of them stupid guys that occasionally would try. I'd hunt in the morning, hunt in the middle of the day, and hunt in the afternoon, different places, and try to make it happen. So here's some fun facts for you guys. So let's say the average landowner is about 100 acres.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
You can harvest 2 birds. Okay. Now let's go to average home range. Okay, let's do it on the small side, 2 square miles. But we're going to talk about management on a square mile basis.
Mhm.
Kind of the green thumb of some management regimes is talking about how many birds we can actually harvest on a square mile without impacting population dynamics.
Okay.
Okay. And so let's say we're on the sand hill. I mean, I can talk about different parts of Georgia. We're on the sand hills of Georgia, not such good habitat. And we have those 6 landowners that make up that 640 acres ish. Okay.
Mhm.
Easy math. So if each one of those landowners want to harvest 2 birds, that's approximately 12 birds, right?
Mm.
We could legally harvest.
Yeah.
Now on them sand hills, I'm going to tell you, sometimes that's some of the absolute worst habitat if it's not managed, etc. Okay. And so on poor habitat on a per square mile basis, we really don't want to be harvesting over 1 to 2 birds per square mile.
No kidding.
Mm.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
So moderate habitat, we may be up to 4 to 5 birds. On really good habitat, it could be 10 to 12 birds. Oh, look out. We're starting to approach the high threshold of 6 landowners.
Wow. Now, do
Okay,
you
so-
guys? Sorry. Go ahead.
No.
No,
This
I
is
was just
This
going
is
to
to
ask.
make
Like,
you think for a minute.
yeah. No, I was just now. It is, and that's why my next question's coming from is so of those property owners. Obviously, not everybody's hunting. So do you guys have a way of gauging like um how the hunter disbursement is per 100 acres, or
Yeah.
that's the tough thing, right? Because
Yeah.
you could have one area that the word gets out that's really good, right?
Mm.
And everybody just goes in there and whacks them, stays legal, and that's a gigantic impact to an
Absolutely.
area.
So
Wow.
so let's add some reality here. Okay, you guys want to hunt together. I'm bringing my friend with me, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe I have a son or I have a daughter
Mhm.
or granddad, and we're all gonna hunt. We're gonna be legal. We're gonna follow statewide guidelines. Well, the issue here is it may be one property is really a black hole that's sucking in birds and killing a lot of birds. Okay,
Mhm.
maybe your neighbors don't hunt. Maybe you're the only one on that 600-acre area, even though there's 6 landowners, but y'all hunt, you bring your friends, and you successfully harvest more birds than you should. What we are actually seeing in some areas, it's very believable. I think Whiteman has demonstrated this in one of his studies underneath Chamberlain, etc. But we're seeing some additive mortality. There's 2 types of mortality. One's compensatory, which basically means this many birds are going to naturally die each year, and we think that by harvesting this many, it's not impacting the population. Beautiful.
All right.
And we have some areas where we do think that we're harvesting too many birds,
Mm.
okay, over what would naturally die through disease, predation, etc. In
Mm.
those cases is where we start seeing some serious turkey decline potentially.
Mm.
And we could create, I'm calling it the black holes, where we've had a lot of landowners in multiple states reach out and go, we don't have turkeys anymore. So let me add in another like curveball, because this blows people's minds. So turkeys have evolved through basically imprinting. Okay. So if we don't have a gobbler to bring other gobblers to a key roost site in this area because we've killed out an age cohort, you know what happens? They may not come back for a while. And a while could be months, years, decades.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. And so we start throwing in some of these other curveballs, and it becomes very complicated. And we're seeing some areas where people, they're shouting up and down and screaming like, I don't have turkeys anymore. Well, it could be the things I just discussed. Very simple. It's not a big disease. It's not something else. People have been legal, but because of the fragmentation of the land, how many people may be in an area hunting, we may be having some isolated wild turkey declining areas. It's that simple.
Wow. All right. So here's what it keeps going on in the back of my mind, Tristan, is that video that we're releasing.
Yeah.
So Cade has that property, that he hunts and everything else. When you talk to him, this is a buddy of ours that's got property in Arkansas. Talking about, it's making me, Cade, I'm actually respecting you tonight. It's talking about a true steward of his land and the people that connect to his land. He's got a rule that he will not harvest. I don't know what the number is.
Two. So
two.
Off of that. And what's up, guys? Tristan here. If you're like us, you need gear that's going to stand up to the elements and not break the bank. That's exactly what we love about Frog Talks. They just dropped their brand new Oxbow waterfowl series, and let me tell you, this stuff is built for serious hunters who don't want to quit when the weather turns nasty. It's tough, lightweight, and waterproof. Everything you need when you're out there chasing ducks. If you're looking to upgrade your gear this season, head over to frogtalks.com and use code OneHellOfALife Outdoors at checkout for 15% off your order. Ever since he's
no matter what, he can shoot more than that, but he will not do it.
Yeah,
because he's raising that little.
Ever since he's done that, he's always there's always 4 or 5 gobblers, if not more, 2-year-old or older birds when he's been doing it that way the last 6 years. So
yeah, and that's a great example of the importance of that. And the other thing that we haven't even talked about is predation, right? I mean, talking about the removal of significant predation can make a high impact, because these birds are smart, right? And they know we're hunting them, but they also know what else is hunting them and how thick that population is here and there. Yep. And if they know that, hey, this area used to be high in predation and this landowner went in and did those things to help reduce that, they're going to naturally, if the habitat is there, progress to those areas, so there's that to throw into this whole thing too, so
absolutely, man. It's pretty interesting. I'm going to hit on this predator discussion because we're very comfortable talking about it and things we're standing up, and people will get to hear a lot of details because we haven't even put it all out to the bigger public yet, so they're going to hear it right now. But I'm going to finish up on this overharvest because there's some folks were talking about this almost like a DMAP program, deer management assistance program, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're trying to manage your local deer herds XYZ. Okay. And I'm going to give Brian Murphy, a friend of mine from the past from Quality Deer Management. And, he's no longer there, and things have changed dramatically. Right. But when they started cooperatives, okay, thinking about deer, it changed even how state agencies manage deer herds across the nation. Okay. And so I give him a lot of credit. When we first started talking about how we're going to address private lands and turkeys, I said, man, I love the cooperative and we're going to try to do something similar. And he said, that's probably one of the best things you'll ever do. And I'm giving him public credit again. Mm-hmm. They had a great idea because it brought landowners together. So we are standing up private landowner cooperatives for the wild turkey. And that's so awesome. What we're trying to do is get people working together. And one of those components to talk about is when we do an assessment there, ideally we'd like to have at least a 2,500 acre complex. It's a goal. Mm-hmm. So bring your neighbors in. We want to take a look at things. We want to give some management goals for turkey harvest. Okay. It may be that not everyone can harvest as many birds you want to. And so give an example. I was talking about turkeys in Florida. I have a landowner that we have some Osceola birds with, and we discussed this, like how many birds he's seeing, etc. And we set a harvest goal. We're not going down to harvest as many birds this year. And there's a reason why, because he's not seeing as many turkeys as he did. And we're not going to impact the population. We have to think about, and I'm going to throw it out there, turkeys for tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So some of this is self-regulation. Just because on a statewide basis we know what we can harvest, we may have to pull back a little bit. We have to self-regulate. If people aren't self-regulating, you need to listen up. You need to think about it. Okay. If you want to have birds down the road for your kids, grandkids, friends, you name it, think about it. We can't be selfish, can't be greedy. All right. So that's one of them. So on the front side of all this, and what we're trying to talk about with private landowner cooperatives is really habitat, nesting, and brood range. I am blue in the face about it. We have pushed this forever. And I've talked with many others, and I give an example of a property that I helped do some consulting on, about 3,000 acres down in Alabama, a very big tract. It was primarily young pine plantation, okay? And what we did is we converted that to heavy thinnings. The hardwoods in the little finger stringers were not touched. We expanded the openings. We did everything you could. I gave him the full-blown turkey habitat plan, okay?
Yeah.
They did it. You know what happened? The turkeys just didn't show up. And I've seen this multiple times working with a lot of landowners, and it's always bothered me because I grew up learning and went through school and worked with a lot of folks going, if you do this, they're going to come. Well, that's just not the fact. There's something that I'm going to term, and it's not a truth yet. I've talked to all the turkey researchers about this. It's almost like an adoption period. So you heard me earlier talk about birds evolving through imprinting. This is where it becomes a challenge. So if you do a lot more scalable habitat work and you think they're going to show up, I'm going to tell y'all right now, it ain't going to happen. Because these birds have basically adopted to an area, okay, and they've imprinted on, I need to go here. And so the research shows, it's kind of interesting. Here's some cool facts through GPS studied hens. Hens they have this high site fidelity where, let's say they drop a nest in one area, they'll usually go back to that 5-acre-ish area and put a nest back down the following year and the following year. Even if it's depredated on and they almost die, they will go back.
Wow.
Why is that? Imprinting. So the biology of the bird, they don't know better. They do not have cognitive reasoning. So they will go back to the same place. They will take their brood right back to the same feeder where little Joe gets eaten by a hawk one day, and they'll go back the next day and little Susie dies. And then the next day, Tristan dies, right? Like, what's up? Why do you keep going back? Because they're stupid, okay?
Yeah.
I love turkey, believe me. But imprinting has been their downfall, all right? So they keep going back and back and back and back and back to the same place. So same thing on this property. We rehabbed this property, and what we saw was birds were going to young pine stands.
Okay.
I took one day and walked 15 miles with this guy, just walking around, walked the roads. I said, hey, he said, hey, let's hunt. And I said, well, I'm going to hunt on my own. Let me just go and look. Couldn't find a bird. The only birds are gobbling on the adjacent track. Now, to be a biologist and telling someone what to do and how much time, money they put into it, I felt like an idiot. But it's the birds. So it takes them time to slowly immigrate back into an area after disturbance is done, even though that habitat was ideal.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what happens on the interim when we do scalable habitat. We get a lot of bugs. We got a lot of small rodents. We have all these other populations that start flourishing real quick. So what does that mean for a turkey? So this turkey's now got to infiltrate back in where now there's a lot more foxes, coyotes, bobcats, you name it, that used to not be there.
I see. Okay.
So now there's a second challenge. So what I noticed walking around, I saw a lot of tracks on the roads. Then I asked the guys with the cameras, I said, hey, what are y'all seeing on camera?
Mhm.
Oh man, we're seeing more bobcats we've ever seen. I went, well, your habitat has flipped, and you have a lot of young critters here. I'm sure you do have. Yeah, we're seeing a lot more. We even picking up some foxes, and we got coyotes running there. I'm like, okay, all makes sense.
Yeah.
So the biology mind's telling me what happened, but the birds have just not moved back in. It takes
Right.
them time. And now it's even more of a challenge because there's a higher predator index than what there was. I said, all right, boys, next step. We got to do some predator management.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's like you just made me realize like if I had some property and I had turkeys on it and I haven't assessed the predator population on my land, I am at risk right now. Like this spring, this hatch, whatever, from just losing my turkeys for a long, long time. If ever getting them back again. You know what I mean? Like let's say that population just because they keep going back, right? It gets wiped out, whatever. Then man, yeah, you're looking at a rebuild process that's tough.
It takes time, and Mother Nature, she deals her cards the way she wants to. And each year, if we get crummy weather of any kind, it can make populations boom or bust. And so it's interesting, the whole predator thing. I've been thinking about this for years, and not everyone's on board. Okay, and so we're standing up some of the most robust predator prey studies that's ever been done, and there's a reason why. There's less than 5 studies that's ever really been done with turkeys and predators. That's just a fact.
Wow.
Okay. There's a ton of research with predators and bobwhite quail, a ton. Okay. And so we know that if we do some selective trapping and predator removal, 2 weeks to nest initiation for bobwhites, we can flip a population in 1 year by 10 to 15%.
Wow.
Depending on population size, juxtaposition of habitat, all this kind of stuff, we've seen populations over a 3-year window boost to 100% change.
Wow.
Okay.
How?
If I'm going to invest in something, boys, I'm going to tell you right now, I'd invest that every day of the week. We retire
seriously.
right? So there's some complications here. We haven't proven this with turkeys yet, but we want to prove it with turkeys. Some of us that have worked with a lot of landowners and we've integrated next steps, especially folks that have done a really good job with habitat. Maybe some predator management could help.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why we want good nesting and brood range, y'all know why? It's to protect birds from predators.
Yeah.
Okay. So we get caught up talking about, hey, we need good nesting and brood range. Well, yes, but why do we need it? And we tend not to talk about that. Well, we're talking about it. We do it because we're protecting birds from predators. And so the more of that sea of habitat you have across the landscape, the better opportunity that hen is going to survive on the nest, not get bumped. We know through studies that sometimes a hen bumped once, twice, she'll completely leave the nest if she's been bumped by a predator. Okay. And so if we're protecting her with good habitat, fantastic. But predator numbers are still really high. It may be really hard for them to overcome that. And so this is some basic biology. Like if we have too many predators and this kind of prey, they never have a chance to really grow. Right. Now, if we take some correlation of data from the past, I like to talk about this. A lot of the turkey researchers don't like me talking about it, but I am. Okay. Because we got to throw it all out there and we got to mix this up and figure it out. And so in the state of Missouri, it's kind of interesting. State of Missouri has long-term data on scent stations for predators. Okay. It happens to go back when trapping was at a heyday. Fur prices were high. You know what else happened when we're seeing very few predators in those scent stations, low predator index, but we happen to see a lot of turkeys. It happened to be around when turkeys were being reintroduced. And the beautiful thing of this correlation of data here is that we're seeing each hen pulling off 7 to 8 or more poults recruited into the population. So 1 to 7, 1 to 8 plus ratios.
Wow.
Through the roof. That's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
People say, oh, it's just because birds were being reintroduced at that time and, it just happens. Well, they keep trying to dump birds in Texas right now, the last 10 years, Easterns in Texas, and they cannot get that population to recover. Could it be something else?
Right.
Okay, so let's go back to this data. Do we know which state in the union used to have the highest turkey harvest in the nation? Give
No.
y'all a guess.
Georgia.
Oh Lord, it was Missouri. We're in
Oh.
Missouri. Okay? This is going to be really easy. Okay, so in Missouri we saw the highest. Do you know what state used to move more furs than the other state in the nation?
It's got to be Missouri.
Missouri.
Oh no, dude! I need to see a turkey call. Yes, you're correct. And so we start looking at some of this information. That turkey population bolstered, grew. We had intrinsic growth, which is very fast, rapid growth of the turkey population. And then when the heyday of furs and whatever went away, this is all correlation. I can't say this is a fact, but the correlation is when the fur prices started going down, we happen to see the turkey population harvest going down. Is there something to that? It could be. We did not see as many furs going out the door, and those 60,000+ birds being harvested a year started dropping 50, 40s, and then it's still a very high. This past year, they had a very high harvest. Okay. But we also have some other things that are going into the mixer. It's pretty interesting. I talk about cicadas a lot. Cicada hatches. It's not everywhere, but we've had some tremendous hatches year over year. And what we see is predator-prey shifts. So this is the same thing as now, instead of a predator going, hey, I might pick off a poult or two, now they got all these cicadas on the ground. They're like, buddy, let's fill on up. This is good.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now they're not moving around as much. And so hawks, coyotes, mesopredators, they're eating cicadas. They're gorging, just like turkeys, okay? And what we see in all the states, believe it or not, is all the research shows from state agencies through the polled indices that they run, and then looking at harvest 2 years after a cicada event. You know what happens in those states? We usually have record book harvest, because which component of the population is harvested almost every year? The highest component? It's 2-year-old gobblers, right?
Yep.
Those are those teenagers. They're loudmouth. They gobble a bunch, whatever. But we see this. It's been proven in Ohio, here in Kentucky, and the other Midwestern states where we've seen these cicada hatches. We had a back-to-back cicada hatches here in Kentucky last year. Here's some data. Here's some nerdy facts.
Yeah.
But we had cicadas hatch over 3/4 of the state.
Okay.
Even though we had some flooding rains, okay, and our hen to poult ratio this year was like a 1-to-4.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Correlate, right? Correlation again. Can't prove it for sure, but we've seen this in multiple states now, and I think it's becoming more factual.
Wow.
Wow. Who would have thought? I mean,
Yeah.
I never would have even crossed my mind that that would be a factor.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, I
This
mean,
goes back to predators, right? So now predators are focused over here, not here.
Yeah.
Could it be that predators are impacting population growth? Cicadas kind of prove it.
Right.
Right. And so we're trying to start pulling all this together and going, we might be able to do a little bit of work here and have dramatic impacts on populations. If we could get prey numbers higher than predator numbers, then we see growth again.
Yeah.
And then how do we manage that over time? And that's what we're getting at. We want to see good habitat work, but number 2 in our private landowner cooperative deal is predator management. Okay. Number 2. Number 3 was harvest, which we hit on early here. Okay. Number 4, which people are going to learn about this next week with a partnership we have with Hunt Regs. We're going to have basically an application rolling out nationwide that basically anyone can collect data for us. Okay. The citizen scientist. And then we're going to have a little fun with this. We're throwing in for each day that the citizen scientist enters in data. It's real simple. Just a few questions about turkeys. Okay. I don't care if you're riding down the road, you see them entered in. You get entered in for a chance for a fully guided Osceola turkey hunt next year.
Wow.
So we're trying to incentivize people to help. Because we got to tackle this problem at a much larger scale.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, why would you not get involved in that if you're listening to this podcast?
Absolutely. So the one thing about predators, we're standing up some studies. I think this is very important. It's extremely important, and I'll talk about Georgia as well. So we're standing up. This may end up being one of the largest predator prey studies ever done. Period.
Okay.
Okay. We have 9 states involved, Pennsylvania, all the way over to Oklahoma, and then basically most of the deep South states.
Mm-hmm.
And so 11 study sites. It's going to be over multiple years. We have 4 major universities: University of Tennessee, University of Auburn, University of Florida, and Oklahoma State. We also have Tall Timbers involved, the National Trappers Association, and the National Trappers Foundation. At the moment, we may have some more, and so it's a big deal. We're putting out ARUs at the moment, trail cameras, and we have control and study sites, and then literally we'll start a trapping protocol next, quote unquote, early, not spring, but really winter into spring of next year. Okay. And then we'll start monitoring results. And so hopefully we'll start figuring out if just some basic trapping helps. And then we'll start implementing some more advanced trapping down the road and see what those differences are. And all for turkeys. Okay.
Yeah.
Another study we're standing up out of the state of Georgia with the Jones Center. Okay. Down in deep South, along with the University of Florida, is another predator prey study. Because we got to throw everything we can and try to figure out what we can do, and then come up with real world recommendations on how to do this. I think it's going to fall really much in line with how we do it for bobwhites, but we want to make sure that is going to be the facts. And then we have another study in Oklahoma with Dr. Turner. It's a prescribed fire predator prey study there as well. And so we're throwing all we got at it to try to figure out if this is going to be a bigger component than what we may have ever thought.
Wow.
Do you think that, assuming that this goes well and it kind of proves the issue here, that they would ever implement something, whether it be state by state or just across the board, where they put some sort of like incentive on trapping these for like the average person? I mean, would that ever be on the table, you think?
I think so. So I can't share everything yet, but I will share you this. It's pretty cool.
This winter, elevate your outdoor pursuits with Williamson Outfitters, offering professionally guided experiences along Florida's Forgotten Coast. From coastal duck hunting to inshore fishing, every Williamson Outfitters trip is led by a seasoned captain, delivering world-class adventure with true local expertise. From small private groups to large corporate retreats, Williamson Outfitters' fleet of well-equipped boats and experienced guides provide first-class winter outdoor experiences for sportsmen of all ages and skill levels. And for those planning ahead, Williamson Outfitters is already booking spring and summer charters. Secure your fishing, flounder gigging, and family adventure dates now before their calendar fills up. Call or text 850-251-8650 or visit floridaducks.com to reserve your outdoor experience. Williamson Outfitters, making the Forgotten Coast unforgettable.
A bunch of us have been talking about trying to incentivize, just like we do with the landowner, like through Farm Bill.
Yeah.
Where you can do XYZ, actions on your land to improve habitat, et cetera, for whatever species.
Yeah.
Maybe a component of some very larger policy from the federal to state policy would be to integrate some of these funding mechanisms for trapping when other things are in place. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're doing good habitat work and you want to do next level, hey, great. Maybe you're on a lease property and you can't do all the habitat work, but maybe you can trap. Hey. Right. So I think if we can get this data, if some of these research projects, if it proves what we're really thinking, then we take this to change policy in a bigger, stronger arena. And that's really the goal.
Man, that's awesome. And I think, big picture, this is why organizations like what you guys do are so important. And I think, people that don't look at data, you see on social media all the time, people just like run their mouth on different things, and whether it be ducks, whether it be turkeys, whatever it might be, but don't look at the actual facts of like what folks like you guys are doing, boots on the ground, like behind the scenes, that could influence like policy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that kind of stuff's just so important. I mean,
well, data supports policy, right?
Right.
And if you don't have the facts and the data, there's not going to be policy. And that's just, nobody's going to invest money, time, effort, and everything else unless the facts are there. And somebody's got to be willing to go out and do that. And thank God that, I mean, what a to do to just put that together, that co-op of all these different states to do that study. I mean, I know that just that in itself had to be a minimal a year of planning just in that.
Tell you what,
know.
believe it or not, we did it in about 6 months.
Wow.
This come from a couple of us basically kind of having some one-on-one conversation about, hey, we need to do something. And I'll tell you, Dr. Harper, out of University of Tennessee, we're basically talking at one of our field days, and he had one of the exact same kind of examples that I have on multiple landowners. And he told this story about working with a landowner from, day one, and they didn't really do any habitat work, but they just started with some really simple trapping. They had a ton of cameras on this place. They only knew of a handful of birds on this property, okay, from day one. And so they started putting in some dog proofs, right? Really simple trap, one of the easiest ones. I call it the candy, right? We if you get a taste of that candy, you want to do some more. It's easy to do.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, when I go around the springtime, I keep some with me and I show people. I'm like, hey, have y'all ever run one of these? What's that? I said, man, this is easy. This is a midday, like we're gonna turkey out in the morning. We'll run traps in the middle of the day, make a day out of it, right? And so, and everyone's like, oh man, that's easy. I'm like, yeah, we can set a few and come back next day, and you're in turkey camp. Let your buddy come and run the next few days, and all of a sudden you're starting to have little impacts. Okay, and so it's a way to get people interested in doing it. But if we do all this correctly, right, we may see some long-term benefits. And so I was talking to Craig about same kind of thing, and he's like, yeah, first year we did this and we saw a little impact. Then year 2, and then man, year 3, he's like, man, we had 42 gobblers on camera plus jakes.
Wow.
I'm like, good night. He's like, yeah. He's like, all we were doing was trapping. We did nothing else. Like the same habitat management was going on. Nothing changed, but that did. I'm like, man, I've heard this too. We have one of my board members that said this. I have one of our board members in that we did a study actually with Sitka. Okay. And we radio tagged birds last year. It was almost a year ago today, down in Texas, some Rios. And our board member down there at Mellon Creek, it's an outfitter. Mr. Dan Brayman owns the place. He's a fantastic human being. He's been on our board for a number of years. And he said, look, Jason, he said, I will tell you this. I've been doing intensive habitat work for a long time. In scrub country, brush country, it's a different kind of management. A lot of fire, a lot of mechanical disturbance for mesquite, et cetera. And it's different. And he said, you know what I changed? And my turkey population changed. I said, what's that? He said, we started trapping primarily around our roost sites and really working the road system. Most of these predators like to use road systems because they're lazy like we are. And he said, it may have been 2 years, but maybe 3 years. He said, I bet you my population doubled, if not tripled. He said, I can't prove it. He said, but being here this many years, we got a lot of turkeys. And I'm going to tell you boys right now, I went down there and when I went down the first time and kicked around Dan, I said, Dan, I said, I rode around with your guys. I said, this is like an old roach motel, right? He's like, what do you mean? I said, man, you got so many doggone turkeys. It's like roaches coming out everywhere. And he just started laughing. He was like, yeah, I guess so. And I said, yeah. I said, I've been to a lot of tracks in a lot of states. All over the place, working with small landowners to very large landowners, thousands of landowners. And I said, man, I've never seen so many birds. He's like, we do the habitat work, but now we're doing the trapping. He said, this works. This is common sense. Wow. And you know what he says? We don't overharvest. I love that. And I said, man, that's exactly what we're talking about. He said, we do not overharvest birds. I know roughly how many gobblers I have every year, and we will not overharvest. And that is key. Like he is managing his population at a local level.
That's right.
Not what anyone else can tell him to do. That's winning, winning, and winning.
Yeah. So folks listening to this, I mean, if you're fortunate enough to have your own property, I mean, I hope hope there's some people listening to this that are taking notes tonight that can be like, man, if I implement some of these things in 3 years, could potentially see a really great turnaround.
Well, and the bigger thing is that, just it gives you, if you don't know your neighbor, it gives you good reason to go over and talk to him.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, whether you hunt or not, I mean, literally, even if you allow hunting on that property or not, just go and talk about being cooperative in it, and that effort, and I think that's just a huge deal. I've seen it. I mean, the whitetail community does a really great job of it, I think, in a lot of areas, I mean, especially with what land's going for, and when it's being driven by whitetail hunting populations, you really are in a lot of states like Illinois and Iowa and stuff like that. I've had a buddy that, I mean, he wasn't going to go invest $1.4 million before he talked to the property owners around there, and said, hey, what are you all doing, and it's became a bigger deal, but that's what it's all about. I think it's just like you said, is when you can take that effort of managing your population, that's the key.
Let me ask you this, Jason. So for, we talked about private and how private can influence public, and it seems like just from in our backyard, like what we see on public land, it seems like the state of Georgia does a pretty good intentional job of managing their turkeys. I mean, you see areas that are burned. You see. I don't
from habitat management.
Yeah, from a habitat management standpoint. I mean, and I don't want to like say this any sort of way, like that's not painting state agencies in a great light. That's not what I'm trying to do. But like, are state agencies all receptive or all kind of across the board is like doing everything they can? Or don't name any states, but I mean, is it one of those things that can be frustrating working with certain states that aren't like on the same page, I guess? And you don't have to name anything. I'm just curious.
I'm not going to point anyone out at all or locations, but I'll tell you this. I think a lot of the mindset, I mean, you look at how agencies are structured, whether it's the feds or the states, and their goal is primarily they're taking care of the wildlife populations at large. Yeah. But oftentimes there's a lot more time, energy, money put into the public grounds because they're having to manage those, right? And they're trying to maximize output, knowing that there's probably going to be more people per acre on those tracks than anywhere else. And so that's a challenge. I mean, I worked for the state agency down in Georgia in the past, and we saw that on all the public grounds. And so it was always a challenge. And so it takes a lot more effort to do that. But thinking very holistically here, I do think there needs to be a lot of change in states where there's more emphasis on professionals working with private landowners for management. And I don't know where Georgia is these days. I just know that, I left Georgia and I had a 6-month waiting list of people wanting me to meet with them.
Wow.
I mean, that's a fact. There were that many people that needed help. And, I know I was burning the road every week trying to help folks, and I love doing it. A lot of people, depending on what they're managing for. And so I think there's a gap, and I think it's because of how many of the agencies were designed in the past and even the funding structures to help that happen. A state, and I will mention a few here, but a state like Missouri that has a more permanent funding model where 1/8% of sales tax goes into conservation. So everybody buys in, okay?
Wow, yeah.
They have one of the best infrastructures. They have private land biologists for every county.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Different. So Missouri has a big focus. Minnesota is another one of those states with a very good funding model. And so they have a strong, and some of that's through their lottery dollars, okay? So they have a very strong component there. We've been, excuse me, there's some dogs going to bark.
You're all good.
But in the state of Tennessee right now, they're trying to come up with some additional funding sources to help. Because right now, I mean, you guys understand how this works. It is the folks that buy the hunting and fishing licenses that are the bread and butter to fund the agencies. And then they use, Pittman Robertson and Diggle Johnson dollars, okay, as matches. And the PR dollars are primarily coming, it's anywhere from 83 to 86% of that total funding is coming from recreational shooting.
Wow.
The folks that don't even really hunt.
Yeah.
And so we have a very complex system that's worked, but we have a lot of pressures in this system. And honestly, I think that in society, and this is a controversial topic, and you get around a lot of agency staff and folks in positions and that work with commissions, and this is a scary topic because when people say, "Hey, we need to have everybody at the table to solve these problems," well, that means so and so wants this and so wants this. Well, I'm gonna tell everyone right now. I've sat in a lot of meetings in a lot of places, from Washington D.C. to state capitals, trying to drive some kind of conservation directive for the greater good of all of us. And what you see is folks on the very big opposition, they show up. The HSUSs, the PETAs, the other folks that we don't really think about, we joke around about, they show up and they're driving hard. So these other random folks are there. So what we need are better funding mechanisms, I think, long term, if we're really going to manage wildlife across all counties in every state the way it needs to be managed correctly.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be more emphasis there.
That's a great point.
Well, and hopefully, through good hires and direction that, some of these states that are doing it right, that, and you see it, I know you see it in a lot of ways, it's that duplication effect, right? That they see one state doing it right, and there's a co-worker or colleague that now is in charge of this state, and, starts putting in the same mechanisms, because of that, and hopefully we'll see that more of a drip effect, with that. So
yeah, 'cause
absolutely.
I feel like a lot of not all states, but it feels like for sure Illinois, like just like from what he's told me, like we're originally from Illinois, and like the stuff he tells me about when he was a kid, like the state parks and just the resources of the game wardens that were around, and the biologist, and the stories he used to tell me about the staff that just worked there at the park. I mean, now it's like you may
ghost town.
Yeah, you hardly see anybody up there, and it's just like it seems like you see that, and even in Georgia too. I think they might be pressed a little bit.
We had a 24 square mile lease. It hadn't been hunted in 20 plus years, except by one person, a family member, and we got rights to this property, and it's just a mecca, a whitetail mecca, and
Can you send me an onyx point?
Well, it's public land now, so the state finally got what they were aiming for. Long story on that, but the thing that was intriguing though was when they were approached by the state of Illinois with two biologists and said, "We want to utilize your property and the neighbors to do a 6-year study on deer that are 4.5 years of age and older," and they wanted to get into the minds of why are these deer so smart? Why are they? Why was I always give credit to the guy that wrote Bambi. That all the animals in the forest, where did they look for danger? Boy, when the Great Prince or whatever stood up, they's like, hey, all right, and even that guy knew what was going on with the smart deer. But the point is that they were reaching out to private landowners to make an impact, and you understanding that that's where they're going to get some of this data from and stuff. It was really interesting, and actually, I'll just share the stat that they came to that I'll never forget was after that 6-year study, they were going over their so many different results, but what they determined was, and this is before trail cameras, the results came out in like 96, 7, that range, and that 78% of bucks over the age of 4.5 years older are never even seen by a human. That's what they determined, and they did it by radio collar. They did every single way. But that's before we had trail cameras and everything else. Which trail cameras made a gigantic difference in that. But but the point is that that Illinois used to do that kind of thing. I don't know if they still do, if they have the resources to, but what I'm to piggyback off what Tristan's saying is that perception a lot of times is reality, right? And you go to this famous place that you see so staffed, and it was very common to run into a biologist and a game warden and people there that are managing the property and putting in food plots and doing all these things, and sometimes it's like crickets there now, so it's, that's how it can change so drastically in just a 20-year period,
Yeah.
big piece of land being affected like that. And it's everything, not just deer, it's everything in that,
Absolutely.
so.
Yeah, I think from a national scale, especially in the eastern U.S., the western U.S. I mean, if we look at some of those states that are almost all public ground, and I know I've hunted in a few of them, and it's crazy. I'm like, oh, I can just go over on the checkerboard here and hunt another track. There's no one around, and it's just totally different. But here in the east, I mean, it's primarily privately owned, and it's we have to change the mindset. And honestly, a lot of this it comes down to really legislative efforts. And this is a whole other topic, but we do need to think about more permanent funding resources to fund making sure that we continue to have places to hunt. We have staff to manage this, and people that are out there ensuring that things are being regulated as well. I was talking to a gentleman, Wayne, the other day over. He's with like Wildlife Crime Stoppers, right? Someone we're going to do some work with, and
Okay.
we're just talking about the lack of even enforcement out there, especially for turkeys, and how big of a challenge it is. And we hear all these stories. We hear a lot of them, and we've seen a lot of the outlaws out there over harvesting, over the limit, trespassing, baiting, you name it. And it's turkey hunting or turkey hunters, or folks that are, I'm going to say not turkey hunters, but are true doggone poachers. Okay. They are a problem. And so also having the ability to have the funding for all that mechanism, because even on the law enforcement side, for game wardens, conservation officers, et cetera, oftentimes those funding mechanisms are much different with how they are funneled down through the agency. So there's some challenges for sure. And for some reason, a lot of people tend to throw, the wildlife stuff kind of on the back burner. It's like, hey, we need to put funding here. We need to do this here, and it's kind of here. But maybe we can borrow some money from them too. And so there's always, almost every year, you hear of some kind of legislative fight where someone's trying to dip in and grab license funds to pay for something else. And it's pretty scary. In the state of Oregon right now, boys, I don't know if y'all know this, but there is a petition where they're going to try to push through for a referendum vote to basically ban all hunting and fishing in the state.
Oh my gosh.
What?
That's a fact. It's pretty scary.
Wow.
Is that why they talk about like it was such a big deal? Like Travis Thompson's played a huge part of this too. But like the right to hunt and fish in Florida, that's why that's so important, I guess.
Yep. There's a lot of states. I'm pretty sure Georgia has it in place. There's a lot of the southeastern states, especially, moved through with that legislation. Or I remember when the vote was done here in Kentucky, maybe a decade ago, and man, that's a big deal. It's there now. Okay, we got a protection in place, and I never thought we'd have to go those routes, but I think there was a time era where a lot of these crazies were pushing to basically take away these things that we fought so hard to have. I mean, our natural resources, what grew our country.
Yeah.
I mean, we're very blessed. We're blessed to be in a country where we have the rights to do these things. I mean, we're very lucky, and we're still kind of on the back end of a heyday, and we need to protect that because it can be with this right here. It's called a pen. A pen stroke can take that away, and that scares me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know you talked a little bit about Steve Ranella when we were on the phone, but I think he was the one that said that, or it was either him or Clay Newcomb over there talking about the first like millionaire or whatever in the United States was a trapper, I guess, with like beaver pelts or something.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you think about how our country was formed, and we had all these people leaving basically Europe because they were on the thumb of the king, and to go over there, you just can't go over there and hunt.
Right.
So it's totally different, and so it's really a hierarchy, and you got to have a title and all this jazz. And so, but over here, people came here for that freedom to do these things, and literally this abundance of really the natural resources. Number one, we had a ton of fiber, but ton of trees, and so people are like, whoa, we can build and make things, and then like, whoa, furs. and whoa, feathers.
Yeah.
And so there ended up being this huge market that erupted, and of course, over time, things have changed. But yeah, it's kind of interesting on a. I'm not going to get too global, but I will. But you look at South America right now,
Mm-hmm.
and South America is at kind of a point where we were, and where they're seeing a lot of growth into this big jungle environment, and they're going, man, look at all this and look at all this stuff, and so they're seeing a big boom, and it's because of their natural resources as well.
Mm. Okay. Yeah. Man.
Wow. Um, I haven't done this in a while, and I haven't thrown random questions like this at people, but when we have listeners, but
Let's go, baby.
all right, I'm going to hit you with one right now. Who's the biggest state that you want to give them a big shout out because you see things going in the right directions for turkeys?
Oh man.
Or if you got a handful, give them shout out. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I just wanted to show that in a good light to the people that are listening. That hey, somebody like Jason here that's so involved and understands. There's some good things going on, for your state. So
I tell you what, I think Mississippi is about to stand some things up like no other right now.
Wow.
all right, go Mississippi.
They just moved a turkey stamp there not long ago. We didn't publicly talk about it, but I'll tell you whose letter was on the governor's desk before anyone else's. 3 senators had it pretty quickly, and so I will say that state has some great potential to do some things. We've been talking behind the scenes. We actually have some content we're going to be releasing the next few weeks with some of our Mississippi folks. They're going to progress some things. Is Mississippi hurting on the turkey population? Yes. However, I'll tell you what, there's some very motivated individuals with the agency there, and I'm proud to call them my friends and colleagues, and I think some great things are about to happen. I'll leave it there.
Yep. Awesome stuff.
Yep. That's great stuff. Well, from a like holistic view of like turkeys for tomorrow, do you guys, and this might be a dumb question, but like, so how do people, take us through getting involved and what people, I mean, do you guys do local banquets and chapters and stuff like that, kind of like the NWTF model, or what's the
we do have some similarities, and so we have something called local flocks.
Okay.
It's got a different name because we're trying to keep us separated from everyone. We're not a branch, we're not a chapter, we're not a group. We're called a flock. It's kind of turkey centric.
Yeah.
So we have flocks that are erupting primarily in the southeast, but the northeast is picking up. We even have one form with some policemen and firemen in New York City, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So yeah, Pennsylvania, New York, New Hampshire's about to have something. Maryland's about to turn on. Virginia, West Virginia, the Carolinas, and then the Deep South is Alabama's kind of the biggest stronghold right now. And so that's really good. But we have flocks. Basically, our requirement is, hey, we're just looking for your time, talent, or treasures. How can you build back in? If you want to help us do a field day, fantastic. If you want to do something to help fundraise, fantastic. If you want to just help get the word out, let's do it. And so we're trying to keep it very open. And what we're seeing is we have a very young following. So if I look at our following online, which is pretty tremendous on all of our social platforms, and or our membership, it's primarily 20 to 40-year-olds is the bulk. And then it kind of tails down. It's much different than all the other organizations. We have a similar approach to backcountry hunters and anglers with bringing people together with social events very early. Have fun. I mean, you may see some bourbon behind me. I'm kind of the bourbon guru. And we're having fun at events, bringing people together. It may just be, we're not doing any fundraising. We just want to get people inspired to try to fix the turkey issue.
Right.
And we got folks that are on our side. Fantastic. So that's how we're doing that. From local level, if people do want to fundraise, we put a committee together this past year. It's called the Fly Down Committee. Basically, our volunteers, and we decided that at a local level, they can expend 20% of anything they make, net value back at something local projects. If they want to invest in a larger project, they can. But we got a list of items and things they can do to give back and help. That's something we heard is like, we want to do more locally. Well, let's do that. The only cursor I put on all that was that you have a 2-year window to expend it. And so We just don't want money sitting. We want to go to use. And so
Yeah.
a little different approach than everyone else, but that's how we're doing that. So yeah, we have a lot of different kind of events. We've had golf tournaments. We've had trapping field days. We've had habitat field days. And then typical conservation dinners. So we're trying to elevate the nomenclature a little bit. It's conservation focused. It's a dinner. And so most of these are in the evening, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. We have a couple coming up this weekend, so to speak, in Tennessee and down in Montgomery. And so, which is good. And then I think the following week we have several, Birmingham, Alabama, to a couple events over in South Carolina. So, yeah, it's very good.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, man, that is fantastic stuff. And definitely, just learning about your guys' organization tonight and the stuff you're doing. It's really inspiring, and just excited.
Shed a ton of light on me tonight. Holy cow! I mean,
feel very optimistic hearing. And again, like I was telling you, like we're pretty green to turkey hunting, but like from just the overall, noise of people's opinions, like to hear what you're preaching over there at TFT, like it's really encouraging stuff.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's great, and like he said, we don't invest most of our time and money in turkey hunting, but I know there's a lot of people that do.
Yeah.
And probably way more than what we put into deer hunting and waterfowl hunting.
Yeah.
And I just know that it grabs people like, and it's like you're a crackhead.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yes. Yes, I am a crackhead. Yes.
No, but that's a great thing, right? And with us, we understand our worlds because we're more engaged in that a little bit more when it comes to like waterfowl and big game and stuff like that, and we understand like truly firsthand how involved it needs to be to support those things. And man, again, just like I started off with, if it wasn't for folks like you guys, we wouldn't have these resources. We just wouldn't. It's that simple.
Well, we appreciate you guys. Once again, it's a team effort. Everyone's out there trying to solve some of these problems. And what it is, I mean, we're just a bunch of passionate fools that love it. And we, it's kind of interesting to talk about, but oftentimes I talk about this is one of the hardest duties that God has put upon us, to be the stewards of the land and do it right, because we've already screwed it up enough, but now we got to try to make it right. And so it's a big challenge, and I hope everyone can just take a minute to think about it. Next time you're out this spring, or whether you're fishing, deer hunting, I mean, ain't no doubt. I mean, I like to do all kinds of stuff. Right? Around my office, it's pretty crazy. So there are a lot of dead parts. My wife's going to go, what am I going to do this? If you pass away, I'm like, just throw it away. Whatever.
Bury it with me.
Yeah, I mean, bear it all with me, man. I mean, I'll be Viking like, but yeah, it's a challenge, and it's a challenge and a hill that I'm willing to die on for, because it's not just about me; it's about everything else. And if we're doing what's right, at the end of the day, I mean, it's going to be greater for all the communities out there too. And so that's how I look at this. And so I'm just blessed to get to do something I love, and don't feel like it's work, but it definitely is work.
Well, at the end of the day, this is all about the bird that should have been America's bird.
Amen, brother. Can I get a
That's right.
Yes.
I thought just one last thing I wanted to kind of bring up, because it's something I've been thinking about recently. There's so many freaking Monday morning quarterbacks on waterfowl, and I understand it's a migratory bird, and there's a lot more dynamics that go into it, but I think what you hit on earlier about being selfless about your harvest as a hunter and being more, for the greater good, that's one of the points I was talking about with a guy from Louisiana the other day about duck hunting is like, me personally, for the greater good, like if I didn't have to hunt, if they, I know this is not a popular opinion, but if there were certain states I couldn't hunt as much, if I couldn't shoot as many birds, whatever it's got to be, I don't know how to make those decisions and figure that stuff out. Whatever they need to figure out to make sure this, like, the greater good of waterfowl is good, do it by all means.
Whatever we got to do to protect
I'm
the
willing
resource.
Personally to be selfless about that and everything else. And I think that just through all hunting, I mean, that was a great point you brought up. I think everyone's got to look in the mirror. I think, and kind of, as much as we love it, we gotta be a little bit, got to share the resource,
and protect it to pass it on, man.
Yep.
I mean, thank God people did that before us, right?
Yep.
Yeah, amen. I mean, I think that's when you're out there by yourself or with someone or whatever. I mean, that's where it all comes. I mean, it all comes together, right? And you have that ability to make that decision. And for me and turkey hunting, I mean, no doubt, I may have harvested a turkey or two, and may have been to a few places to do it. But to be honest with you, I don't have to go out and go, hey, if my limit's 2 birds here in Kentucky, I don't have to kill 2 birds. And if I'm out and experiencing that, I mean, some of my coolest mornings, afternoons, you name it, has never yielded a turkey in hand. It's everything else that's come with it.
Right.
And I mean, I cherish those moments. I mean, I got some tear jerker kind of stories that I'm not going to go into here because I am not going to get into ball mode, but I'm going to tell you every season, and I mean, promise you this, every season I really look forward to getting out with folks because I don't know what's going to happen, but it's been some of the best doggone memories I've ever had in my life. And I'm just like, I can't wait to make another one. Can't wait to make it. And that's what it's all about.
Amen.
So,
That's
yep.
right.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for taking
Yes,
the time
sir.
tonight.
Thank you so
this
much.
was awesome. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this again, we say this all the time, and kudos to everybody 170 plus episodes ahead of you. But dude, we get off of these and we're like, dude, that podcast was so awesome.
That's why we love it. That's why we love doing this.
Yes, I mean,
yeah.
And people like you just humble us to death. So,
well, I appreciate the opportunity and trying to get some good word out there to folks. And you guys are doing a great job. And one of our staff's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're gonna talk to them. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna have that was good. That was really good. But no, guys, I appreciate it. And if anyone out there wants to learn more about us, turkeysfortomorrow.org. You can find us. You can find us on any of the platforms. Just look us up. If you got a question, reach out, call us, send us an email. We will respond to you because we want to help.
Yes, sir. That's awesome stuff. Well, we can't wait to get you back on and dive into a whole bunch of other rabbit holes. And man, if you're ever out here in the Atlanta way, let me know. Let's go have a dinner and a beer or something.
I'm always in. Appreciate it, sir.
Southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train. Going too fast now, think I ought to slow down, standing in the pouring rain.